Yeah, that's right. Division predictions are here. Better late than never. You know who would have preferred that? The Titanic! Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be Packers fan, but it sure does up. I'm your host, Tom. Yeah, this took a while, but 30 and 30 pushed things back. Grossi, and today we are beginning our first of 8 videos in division predictions, starting off with the NFC North. Now, if you're brand spanking new here or you never watched this before, I've been doing this every single year. Usually I do it a couple months before the season is about to start, but things happen. And so the way that this works is I'm going to go through every single team. I'm going to give you what I think their floor and their ceiling can be in this division. Then based off these predictions, we'll see who winds up winning the division. Sound good? Absolutely. So starting off, let's not waste any time, shall we? With the Green Bay mother-loving Packers. A lot of questions about the Green Bay Packers heading into this season, but there's some room for optimism. Not only is Jordan Love looking pretty darn good, but that defense is supposed to actually be good. But again, we've been saying that for years, so I'll believe it when I see it. And of course, the big storyline is Jordan Love finally getting the opportunity to play after sitting for 3 seasons. And I imagine his interaction with Aaron Rodgers went a little something like this.
Thank you, weird man. Bye.
And listen, I've gotten it all off season. Oh, Tom is coping because the Packers are gonna suck. They're gonna be terrible. And listen, they may not be a very good football team. Or they could actually surprise some people, considering they're in a weak conference with a division that is kind of up for grabs. And so here's where I think the Packers are going to struggle. There's some teams that they're going to be playing that are going to be a little bit rough. Of course, we're talking about the Chiefs. The Lions have been kicking our ass for the past couple years. We usually split with the Vikings, and the Bears are, always there. But other teams that might give us some problems, the Broncos, their defense could be really, really good. The Giants, we just never really match up with them well. Look, last year in every single playoff game that we play against them, except that Hail Mary that one time. But there's other AFC opponents like the Chargers and the Steelers that I think the Packers could have a tough time with. So for the Packers, I think their floor is around a 6-win season, so that would make them 6-11. However, I think they have a decently high ceiling of 10-7. The reason being is I think the Packers could split with a team like the Lions and or the Vikings, and their schedule isn't too terrible. They're getting the Saints week 3 where they won't have Alvin Kamara, though it will be Jamal Williams' homecoming game, so there will be a lot of pressure there. Plus, he beat us up last season. But we don't talk about that. But ultimately, it's going to come down to what this offense looks like. And the truth is that the Packers are just a really young football team. You have one wide receiver over the age of 24. And after that, the tight end group, super duper young. Running backs, of course, you have Aaron Jones. And we're seemingly getting younger at almost every position. Of course, no more Mason Crosby. We have Carlson back there. And we just got rid of Pat O'Donnell in exchange for Whelan. So overall, this is a team with not a ton of experience, but has a very high ceiling because of their playmakers, guys like Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs coming into their second year. There's finally a ton of speed on the Packers. And so because of that, I think their ceiling is a little high. But if the Packers make the playoffs, I'll be a happy guy. Also, I just want to see the look on the face of the rest of the NFC North divisional fan base. Just the fact that we got another good QB, if that turns out that way. I would just laugh. Then you got the Detroit Lions. The Lions, who are the favorite to win this division, and they are getting a ton of publicity. Of course, being put in the season opener against the reigning defending Super Bowl champions, the Chiefs. And that game, the Lions don't even need to win. If they win, expectations are going to be even higher than they already were. But if they're just competitive, it's going to set the stage for them. Because as I was just talking about the Packers, they're in kind of a weaker division and definitely a weaker conference. And the Lions were one Seahawks loss away from making the playoffs last year. And so they're primed and ready to go. Of course, there's some questions about Jared Goff. Their run game, they did get Gibbs, which I think is going to be a good addition. He's going to basically just be another receiver. But there are some questions about the Lions, talking about their secondary depth. And on top of that, if Jared Goff can replicate his performance from last year. But the biggest enemy of the Lions right now just happens to be gambling. And after all these suspensions, I imagine Lions fans are like this.
I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about any of this. There's worse shit on the local news.
So taking a look at some of their opponents, the Lions do have some tough games against the Chiefs. They have the Ravens, the Seahawks, I think will be a little bit problematic. And they even have the Cowboys. However, I think that this is a strong football team. I think they've built up their trenches and they're posed to make a run and go to the playoffs. So I have their floor being 9-8, and I have their ceiling all the way up at 12-5. They could split with a team like the Vikings or the Packers, but some of those AFC opponents are going to be tough. And so the Lions, it's all up to you now. The hype, everything, let's see if you can live up to it. And if not, well, at least you'll be used to it. Then you got the Chicago Bears, another team that has been hyped to the moon this offseason, making some big offseason moves. Of course, they got DJ Moore in that blockbuster trade, Chase Claypool in a lackluster trade. But the point is that Justin Fields coming in and they are actually utilizing him the right way last year. They will be a better football team. Are they going to be a great football team? I personally don't think so, but they shouldn't be the worst team. And hell, even if guys aren't getting open or that offensive line is collapsing, Justin Fields can just run like 300 yards a game. I'm sure he won't mind.
Take a deep breath,
I can't!
buddy.
I can't do this. We did way too much.
But honestly, the Bears are rebuilding that defense. That offensive line does give me some major pause. I don't think their run game will take too much of a hit with the loss of David Montgomery, who is now on the Detroit Lions. But overall, they could split with the entire division. They also do have some tough opponents like the Chargers and the Saints, but overall, their schedule is not too bad. So I see them having a floor of around 7-10, and they could go as high as 9-8. And I think if they are able to have a winning record this year, they will be ready to go. Because last year was all evaluation, right? Just like how it is for the Packers this year. They found out that Justin Fields was their guy. They didn't go and draft a quarterback. And so now it's about building around him and, of course, putting them in the best position to succeed. So because of that, I think the Bears will improve, just not enough to win the division. And then finally, you got the purple incarnation of Satan, the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings, weird-ass team. Weird team last year, having those one-score wins, making it all the way to the playoffs, winning the division, and then promptly losing to the Giants. Thank you, Giants. And the Vikings, they don't have the easiest schedule. They're playing against teams like the Eagles, the Bengals, the Chiefs, the 49ers. Yeah, this is what you get for winning the division. Are you happy now? Throw on top of that the loss of Dalvin Cook. I think Madison will be pretty darn good, but Kirk Cousins in his likely last year with the Vikings, there's some question marks there. They did lose Adam Thielen, though he definitely was getting older, and Justin Jefferson is still absolutely incredible, but their defense is still a question mark. I like the Brian Flores signing for them because I think he's going to make that defense better, but again, some question marks for the Minnesota Vikings. So the combination of all those questions and their tough schedule, I have their floor as low as 7-10. It's not the lowest in the division, but things could be problematic for the Vikings, and I have their ceiling at around 10-7. So I still think they could have a winning record if they're able to replicate just some of the success that they had last year, though I don't know if it's going to lead to a playoff berth, and I don't think they're Super Bowl contenders, but I imagine just getting to the dance would be good enough. And plus, you had Kirk Cousins in quarterback. So you're happy, right?
He was the best guy around.
What about the people he murdered?
What murder?
And so to break this down, if we took everybody's ceiling, the Lions would finish at 12-5. Then you would have the Vikings and Packers finishing at 10-7 and the Bears at 9-8. But of course, let me know what you think down in the comments below. These are just guesstimations on what teams I think they're going to struggle with. But overall, I think it's going to be a pretty scrappy division this year. But who knows? They might also all suck. Let me know. You know, I saw me at TomGrossiComedy.com or TomGrossiComedy, all social media, see down below. Check out podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, and of course, YouTube. And a big shout and thank you to all the patrons over patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy and the YouTube members. But thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.